I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Lobo Tiggre, CEO of Louis James LLC. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Happy to be with you again.
Of course, and we're here at the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium. We had some news in the gold space yesterday. We had the Fed cut rates for the first time since 2008. I wondered, before we talk about gold, can you put that rate cut in context for people who might not know what's going on?
Yeah, the most interesting thing about that was that the cut itself was almost a non-event. It was what the majority was expecting. They got what they expected. It was fairly priced in, clearly. But then Powell opened his mouth, right? The poor guy, he's got the toughest job in the world, perhaps. And things got whacked because the forward-looking statements were for less rate cuts than the market wanted to hear. That wasn't what they wanted, and that whacked everything. So it's just words. And personally, I don't believe the insurance policy rate cut story to begin with. The Fed doesn't cut rates because they're worried about what's going on in Germany. I think that they're well aware that there are issues in the United States, and that's the real precaution. So ignore the verbiage, look at the fact, they cut rates, and I suspect that the market may get what it wants and then may regret having wanted it. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a kerfuffle, and we see the precious metals coming back today, the market roaring back this morning too, and somebody has soothed them and said, there, my dear, it's not so bad. We'll see. I mean, if Powell is really speaking the truth and they're not as dovish as they have indicated before, there will be a tantrum, and that will drive the fear trade into the metals, the precious metals, right? And if he just misspoke and they are going to continue to be dovish, that's going to be bad for the dollar, and that will drive the greed trade into the precious metals. So either way, I see any fluctuations in the near term as a buying opportunity.
Okay, and longer term, you mentioned gold took a hit after the announcement. It's coming back today. I hear a lot of optimism about the price in this year. What do you think?
I do think, and I really want to stress to everybody out there, because we've seen these head fakes before, right? When gold was heading up to 1350, everybody was all excited, we're going to break out, and it slumped back down again. And every time that happened, I may even have said this with you, I want to see 1400 and sustained above 1400, and that will signal a real shift where we're broken out of the rut. And that is what we've seen. And even yesterday's mini meltdown or mini tantrum, gold still held above 1400 in the face of bad news from the Fed. So I think that does signal a change, and I think the people out there who are wondering, well, is it real? Is gold going to go up now, or is it just going to go back down? I can't promise the future, but I can tell you that what we're seeing in the price action in the market today is telling us that there has been a shift. There is a different appetite. And more anecdotally on top of that, I'd say, to me, it's quite amazing to see mainstream types, not the gold bugs, not the long-suffering gold bugs out there, but Ray Dalio coming out with his very strong pro-gold position, saying things that sound like Doug Casey or Rick Rule or Eric Sprott, right? And then the talking heads, the guys on Yahoo Finance who only love to talk about FANG stocks and pot stocks and Bitcoin and whatnot. Those guys are charting, gold and silver. I've seen them charting silver on their interactive chart live on Yahoo Finance. Those guys, they wouldn't give us the time of day last year. So we have, I think, data in the price action that tells us that the market appetite has shifted. And then you just look at what's going on and the attention that the precious metals are getting. I think there's potential here for, the momentum play to come back, which would be very good for our stocks and the metals.
Right, and difficult to talk about gold without mentioning silver, which you have a little bit, but where do we see silver following upwards as well?
Well, two things about that. One is it's well known, and you guys have probably seen many examples of this, and people charting how silver tends to lag gold. Gold moves first, and then silver more than catches up. Right? Silver is more volatile than gold. We all know that. We love it and hate it. On the upside, though, it's great. So that's one thing. I have no doubt that silver will move. There's some people saying, oh, well, maybe, silver's more industrial now. Maybe it won't catch up with gold. I don't buy that. The precious metals, they always move together in greater or lesser degrees, but they always move together. If gold goes bananas, silver will go bananas, no question in my mind, and it will go more bananas than gold. So long-suffering silver bugs, and chin up. And the other thing is, though, there are certain conditions when silver really kind of just goes into a mini mania of its own, like just totally way higher than gold. And I can't prove this. I don't have enough data points, but my sense is that this happens when precious metals are rising, which we have now, and the economic situation is dampening the industrial metals for which silver is a byproduct, like copper. Most silver actually comes from copper mines, the big, giant, open-pit copper mines. And we have that now, right? Copper under pressure, global economic slowdown, people are worried, and copper producers, if they cut back, that massively cuts back the silver supply. And if that happens, when silver prices are rising, you can see silver really go nuts. This happened in 2010, and of course, famously in 1980, and the Hunt brothers tried to corner the silver market. I'm not promising this. I'm just saying if this is one of those times, you don't want to miss it.
Okay, and can we assume that gold and silver stocks are also going to be having some upward momentum?
Oh, absolutely. The stocks give leverage to the metals. There are times when that's dampened, when nobody cares, nobody loves us, we're in one of those ruts and so on. And of course it cuts both ways. If the metals fall off a cliff, the stocks fall off a much bigger one. We know that. The good news is that it does help. And I could be wrong. Nobody knows the future. But I do believe the market has changed. I do believe gold has broken out of its rut and we're on our way up to the next big leg upwards, and even more so for silver. And I do believe the stocks will add substantial leverage to that upside.
Staying on the topic of stocks, can you talk about your best and worst investments so far in 2019?
They might be the same thing. Well, okay. My best performing gains right now would be the silver stocks, actually. Okay. Interesting that you mentioned that. And the pre-production sweet spot that we talked about before, the people ramping up towards first pour, those are doing really well in this environment. The worst would be the uranium stocks with Trump punting on 232, and it's worth stressing that he did not shoot down this 232 idea. But even if he did, it wouldn't be the end of the story. Uranium prices are also rising, right? 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but they are rising. So the uranium story remains intact. And the whole 232 thing is at most a distraction on this, but it's created fantastic buying opportunities. So you could say these are my worst performers this year would be some of these uranium stocks, but I'm averaging down, right? I think that's a great opportunity. So in some ways, I'm more excited about these, not because I don't love gold and silver, but just because these things are on sale for the wrong reason. I love that. When something's on sale for the wrong reason, it's a fantastic opportunity.
Okay, so uranium's a when story. We know that. You were here at the Sprott Symposium talking about now opportunities versus longer term ones. So can you talk about how you balance those different strategies in your portfolio?
Yeah, balance may not be the right word, but yeah, the point of the talk was, Rick Rule is famous for saying we often confuse the inevitable with the imminent, and they're not the same thing, right? And so you end up waiting for the imminent that's going to be inevitable, but it's not imminent. And I've suffered that many times. So I've decided, forget inevitable or imminent, I want happening now. And one answer to that would be as what we've just been discussing with gold. I think that's happening now. Like we are seeing a durable shift in appetite, in market demand for gold. And that's happening now. And uranium's another case where we're seeing a series of higher highs and higher lows. It's volatile. But the higher lows are holding up the upward trend there. And that's happening now. So I'm very excited about those things. In terms of actual stocks, and within those areas or those commodities, by the way, I'm very bullish on copper and cobalt and some other things longer term, but they're not happening now yet, right? There's pressures keeping those under. In their day, they would be happening now. But in terms of strategies in stock picking, I want things like the pre-production sweet spot. That is very much a happening now. There's no surprise. There's no if. They're building the mine. You know they're building the mine. So that, right? The only when questions are when to get in, when to get out. And the other thing is what I call success in progress, and that is, I'm very reluctant to gamble really on who's going to make the next big discovery because nobody knows. The best in the business often go years and years and years and don't make another discovery. But when you do have that drill hole that gets the market all excited, oh, big discovery, that's not the end of the story. The famous Lassonde curve with the discovery, the boring engineering phase, and then on off to production, that discovery phase where those 10-baggers live, that's not one day. That's not the discovery hole. That's the discovery hole and the following months or even years defining the discovery before we say, okay, this is how big it is, now let's build a mine. So what I'm saying is the odds of picking which one of these companies, of the many here or almost 2,000 listed on the TSXV, which one of those is going to be the next discovery, it might be 1 in 2,000 odds, or if several make it, it's 1 in 500 odds. That's very long against. But once the initial discovery's been made, and you still have that ramp up, okay, maybe if you miss that first BIP, your 10-bagger turns into a 5-bagger. But you know what? I'm okay with a 5-bagger. I'm okay with 500% gains on something that's already a success in progress, because my risk profile is completely different.
So when you say now, it doesn't mean, I'm thinking about your average investor who's coming for advice. Now doesn't mean you're sitting at your computer just watching things all day. It could mean that's something that your average person could be taking advantage of.
Yeah, I'm not a human algorithm,
Yeah.
right? Though actually I do monitor the markets and my stocks on a daily basis, and if any of them have news, I usually can respond with analysis for my subscribers before the market closes and say, this is what this means, this is what it doesn't mean, what to do, and so on. But I'm not a day trader, right? I'm not looking for that. I'm very much a buy and hold. In spite of being, the independent speculator, I'm actually a value investor. So I'm looking for something where I think the market has missed it, or I'm very confident, as the famous Canadian philosopher Wayne Gretzky says, of where the puck will be, and that will add value, and I can get this at a discount to that value. So. Something has to go wrong with the story. If I sell, it's not just because the price fluctuated or something. It's because they failed. They were going to drill this, it wasn't there. They were going to build that, they didn't achieve it, or whatever.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Any final words for the audience as we head into the second half of 2019?
You know that I'm not one for predictions. And I think you've asked me before, where do you think the gold price will be by the end of the year? And I always say, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't make predictions. But I have to say, I have that feeling, for whatever it's worth. I really do think we've broken out. And so without putting a price target on it, I'm perfectly happy to get the direction right. And my sense is the direction is significantly upward between now and the end of the year. It is not too late. This is not, a 2011 peak where we're hoping it'll go higher. Right, we've just barely broken out of a bottom. So if I'm right, there's huge upside ahead of us. If I'm wrong, there may be some downside. But the upside and the downside are massively disproportionate. And I guess the one thing I would say is you don't want to miss this. I believe that.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It was great to have you as always.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Great. And once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investings Network, and this is Lobo Tiggre of Louis James LLC.